Well, it's an honor to be here at Centennial Hall, working for K2. I want to give a really great thanks to our star producer, Grace Elliott, over there by the door, putting the show together. And the whole staff of K2, Jamie Waste, Jeff Brown, Susan Fitzgerald, Katie Helt. And can I hear it one time for Fort James playing the bass? And how about for Alan Wicks on the drums? And Mr. Steve Nelson on the keys playing for you. My name's Justin Smith, and we got Doc Washington in the house, all the way here from Phoenix to sing for you. And stick around, folks, because we're playing all night.
Well, good evening, wonderful Wonder Park All-Star families. I'm really glad to see you. I want to invite you to go ahead and come on and have a seat. You can move up closer. I did eat dinner, so I'm not hangry or anything. You can move closer to the front if you like. I want to thank you for coming to our town hall. We're here to hear the proposal that the district's providing to the school board for our future, and to give you a chance to ask questions and make comments. And I want to thank Dr. Stock for being here, and school board members that have come. And we also have senior administration from the Ed Center here to present. So if you want to come on in and have a seat, please come on in and move to the front. And I'll turn it over now to Deputy Superintendent Stock.
Thank you. So welcome everyone. I'm Mark Stock, Deputy Superintendent. And as we segue into the program, one of the things I wanted to do was to answer a question that came up. Some of you I recognize have been coming to multiple town halls, and some of you I know have been watching online, and so you've been following it. But there was a question asked in our town hall meeting last night that I just wanted to take a second to address. One of the questions was, has ASD looked at all schools or just elementaries? Are you looking at everything? And the answer is yes, we have. We've reviewed all the schools. We've collected all of the enrollment data. We have building condition grades for every facility and building in ASD. We've got enrollment projections. We have where the locations of all the students are located, and we've looked at all of those factors. Where we settled was, as far as the round one of looking at closures, is that there are more combinations and more of the smaller schools that can be combined that are in close proximity to each other that can be consolidated. In addition, one of the other factors is whether or not sixth graders do move to the middle school on a transition period over the next couple years. And if they do, that also affects our abilities to look at the utilization rates of the middle schools and also others. So yes, we have looked at all. This is what we call round one of closures, and as you're going to hear in a minute, we have 18 schools that are less than 65% or less capacity for utilization. And so we're just proposing 6 as a recommendation that will roll forward, but we have looked at all of our K-12 schools. So with that, I would like to introduce Shannon Bingham, and Shannon is one of the folks who's done a lot of work in school closures and school buildings around the country. Shannon?
Thank you, Dr. Stock. Well, good evening, everyone. So I'd like to put kind of a front end on our town hall meeting and talk a little bit about the structure of what you'll be seeing tonight. We have a sign-up list in the back, and after we give a brief 15-minute, 20-minute presentation, everyone will have an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. And we have a microphone up here. This is just the same structure as our board meetings. And so everyone will be able to speak. The sign-up list is in the back, so if you would like to get your name on that, please do so. And Mr. Thim is in the back here, and he will be our timekeeper. He will announce when you have 30 seconds left and then call time, and we would I respectfully ask you to wrap up so that other people can speak. This is the last of 6 town halls that the district has scheduled addressing the topic of school closure, school consolidation. We have conducted an efficiency study in the district and looked at the majority of our schools and have identified the need to address efficiency in the district. A big part of the reason for that is our financial circumstances. We are looking at a $68 million budget shortfall. That is really what initiated this examination, but it's not the only reason we are looking at school efficiency. We know we have a large number of schools around the district that are 2/3 full, and we have staff that are spread thin, and part of what we're trying to address through this process is a way to become more efficient with both the people and the buildings that we have. And that has resulted in the identification of a variety of strategies to try to solve that. So before we launch into that, I'd like to ask Jim Anderson to talk a little bit about our financial circumstances, and then I'll return and address the national kind of perspective on what's happening with school efficiency and school closure.
I'm Jim Anderson. I'm the CFO. I've been in Anchorage School District for about 7 years. So the chart behind me on my left, your right, depicts state education funding and local as part of the formula since fiscal year 17. So on the far left and all the way across the bottom, you will see some dark blue bars that go up. And almost all of them, except for the very last one, say $5,930. That's the base student allocation. When we determine funding from the state and local community, it all starts with the number of students we have in the month of October times $5,930, and then it goes through all the rest of the steps in the formula. That amount hasn't changed since the first day of school in August of 2016. And every year we've been building budgets since then, we have started with $5,930 per student as the formula. If you look above those dark blue bars, you will see some gray, light blue, and on the right, some gold that go on top. Those represent fund balance or the district's emergency savings that we've used several times. It represents state one-time funding, which usually comes 3 or 4 months after we pass our budget. And then on the far right, you'll see the gold-colored bars that represent federal relief dollars that we've had for the last few years. On the very top, you'll see a red line that goes from left to right, and that is annual inflation since fiscal year 17, and it's projected out through FY24 at 2%. Underneath that, you'll see gaps where the red line was above every other line, even the stacked bars. And on those years, we closed 2 schools, we consolidated programs, we reduced staff across the district. We did adjust pupil-to-teacher ratio, mostly at high school and a little bit at middle school. But for the past 7 years, we have started every budget season with what else can we cut without breaking the classrooms. And so this past legislative session, we started in December. I showed pretty much this chart and briefed it to the Anchorage caucus. And when they went into session, I briefed this chart to the House and Senate committees. I briefed it to joint committees and told everyone in Juneau, if you can't fix the BSA this year, we are going to have a fiscal cliff in fiscal year 24. And we are going to be short well more than $60 million. And they understood, but for the 6th year in a row, they didn't prioritize fixing education funding. For the last few years, as we had the federal relief dollars from the top of the state on down, they were pretty vocal about wait till we run out of federal relief dollars, and then we'll work on school funding, and now we're there. So as this session goes in, we will continue working with the legislators. I know the community at this point is talking to legislators and telling them that education funding is a priority because Anchorage has always, always, always given 100% of the max contribution that they're allowed by law in the state for education. This town does support education and continues to support it 100%. Where we have a shortfall is that the state is prioritizing not having education be funded as if it's August of 2016. So that's kind of where we stand. So in July, I briefed the school board, talked about the projected deficit. If you look on the far, actually, we'll skip that chart. I'm good with this. So if you look at this chart, can you go back to the circles? Sure. If you look at this chart, you'll see 3 rings in a circle. The outer ring is about 9% of the district's total costs. All of those are outside the schools, everything from district admin, things that are not pushed down into the schools. That's 9% of all our budget. If you look in the blue box, blue circle, that's everything that's in a school or goes to a school and supports a school, but isn't a direct core classroom. That's about 30% of all of ASD's budget. And the center circle is all those things from software, curriculum, contracts, everything else that allow classrooms to operate, general ed and special ed classrooms, and that is 61% of ASD's budget. So we have started on the outer ring, working in, and that's why we brought up school closures early, as we knew that we could not surprise the public in February with school closures and a budget, that we had to give people the maximum amount of time, not just to talk to us and the school board members, of which I think possibly all of them are here tonight, but also to legislators, because they're going into Juneau to start their session in the middle of January, and honestly, if they understand that the priority of the community is education funding this session, you know, we'll certainly be more hopeful and optimistic. But that's kind of where we're standing right now, and we will continue through the month of December. But everything we put on the board's platter of possible options, frankly, stinks. All of them are bad options, from sixth grade band and orchestra to Ignite to immersion to swimming, hockey, gymnastics, everything that we've put in front of the board and told them this is what this costs. Really are very painful options for somebody who that's the one thing that makes their day. That's the one reason why that teacher, after 20 years, is still excited to be a teacher, and we get that. And we get that tonight there's going to be a lot of people talking, and this is personal. It's deeply personal. To families, to children, to staff. We understand that this school is a community. This school has its own culture. This school is human beings. It's not just stuff. So, you know, we do want your input at the end of this. I just hope you understand that the board has some incredibly difficult choices. All of them stink. And that's kind of where we sit this year. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. So as you can see here, we have a couple of national situations. We have a declining birth rate and declining enrollment in this district, and that's also happening throughout the western United States. I work for a variety of other districts elsewhere. I've worked in Alaska for almost 12 years. I have been watching enrollment and family sizes decline very markedly during the last 8 years. And during the pandemic, the average Western U.S. school district lost about 3% of its enrollment. A lot of districts have lost more, and very few of those children have returned. Now this year we had a good year from an enrollment standpoint, but a lot of what is in our enrollment numbers are kids that have returned from being out of in-person learning due to COVID. And every district around the West that I've worked with has had a bump as children have come back. Some districts have had more children come back than others, but for the most part, the average loss through the pandemic era is about 3%. I'm working with one district that lost 9%. So I think Anchorage has done better than the average as far as recovering a lot of our pandemic enrollment loss, but we continue to decline. All over the West, birth rates are down. They're down in Colorado, they're down in other western states, they're significantly down in Alaska, and in the Anchorage municipality, we're down about 750 babies per year. So that's a lot of effect on the incoming kindergarten. What districts around the West are doing is they're looking at level of service, because a lot of those buildings have wound up with fewer children in the average school building, and staff are spread thin. 38% of every elementary school faculty are children that are not general education teachers, meaning they're not a fifth grade teacher in front of a room of fifth grade children. They're an occupational therapist, or they're a speech therapist, or they're a special education teacher, or something to that effect. And a lot of those folks, even art, music, and PE teachers, are teaching in multiple buildings over the course of a week. So what we're seeing as school sizes have gotten smaller, those folks are spread more thinly, and it's a challenge to us from a staffing standpoint. Also, when schools get small, we tend to have more volatility grade to grade. So we may have 25 children in a first grade, 37 children in a second grade, 40 children in a third grade, and then back to 25 children in the next grade. So as those ripples move through the system, we have a hard time staffing those, and a lot of buildings use combination classrooms where the teacher teaches half a classroom full of second graders and half a classroom full of third graders. So not counting the district's Montessori schools, we have 67 combination classrooms in the district, which is a lot. Districts around the West have started to try to see if they can have 3 section per grade level schools or 4 section classes per grade level. So 3 third grades, 3 fourth grades, 3 fifth grades, or 4 third grades, 4 fourth grades, 4 fifth grades. It smooths out the staffing model. It gets more adults in the building. It increases the amount of support educators that are in every building. And so that's been a goal from a staffing and a budgetary from a standpoint for a lot of districts that have dealt with declining enrollment. And that is something that we are proposing here by identifying pairs of small schools where we could combine 2 small schools into 1 larger attendance area, or work to try to create larger schools in areas where we have clusters of small buildings. So in the case of Wonder Park, Willowa, and Ptarmigan, we have 3 buildings where we could in fact have 2. And that's why your school has been proposed as a combination candidate. As far as our birth rate goes, you can see back in 2016, we had about 4,500 babies born with moms who had an address in the Anchorage municipality. And by 2020, we had 3,763. That curve I'm seeing over and over again, whether I'm in the Seattle area or the Portland area or the Denver area or the Grand Junction, Colorado area, or wherever I'm working, I'm seeing this curve over and over again. And families are just getting smaller. And a lot of those districts in those areas are reacting to that by proposing the closure of some of their smallest elementary schools and looking at their overall operations, elementary, middle, and high school, and try to figure out ways to become more efficient. You can see that in addition to expecting fewer children coming to us from the preschool age range, we're looking at each one of our existing grades being smaller than it was 5 years ago. So those blue bars are our grade size 5 years ago. In 2017, we had 3,758 kindergartners. And in the fall of 2022, this year, we had 3,199. So every one of these bars showing the difference between our grade size K through 7 during the last 5 years have gotten 300 to 500 students smaller in every grade. So that's why system-wide we have an efficiency challenge where the average elementary school building in Anchorage is about 2/3 full according to its rated capacity. Accordingly, we have proposed the closure of 6 schools that are listed there. 4 of those have 2 specific repurposing ideas. And the reason that we are identifying reclassifying schools as either an early childhood center that would serve preschool age children aged 3 or 4, or offering those to some of our existing charter schools that have facility challenges are we want to hang on to these buildings. We do not want to surrender these buildings in case there's an energy or a mineral or a military boom that returns to Anchorage and normalizes our population to where it was 15 or 20 years ago. We don't want to be blindsided by losing control of these buildings. We can put a charter school in a neighborhood school and not have a significant operating cost associated with having that building run as a charter school. We don't pay a significant amount of the operating costs for that. So that is a true savings for us. Early childhood centers cost significantly less to operate than a K-5 school, and we already have a regional strategy for our schools that have a lot of preschools tend to serve 3 attendance areas that are clustered together, and we're talking about making that strategy broader for Nunaka Valley and Northwood, where those schools would serve 5 or 6 elementary school attendance areas and be a building that would be full of a lot of 3- and 4-year-old children. Research is showing that that strategy has been very effective. Regarding Wonder Park, our repurposed proposal would be Alaska Native Cultural Charter School. That is the current proposal for what might happen in this building. We know that there are families in this neighborhood that might take advantage of that opportunity. So that might be a way where some of the families in this neighborhood could continue at this school if they chose to. And this school would continue in service as a neighborhood facility in that regard. What are we planning to do with the assignment of children from this neighborhood? I don't have my map, but what we're proposing is that for students that live east of Pine and north of this building, which is a line at about East 4th Avenue, there are about 98 children in that area that would attend Ptarmigan. So if you're north of 4th, or roughly north of this building, and east of Pine, you would be assigned to Ptarmigan. If you live south of 4th and still east of Pine, you would attend Willowa. So south of this building, east of Pine, you would go to Willowa. If you live west of Pine and north of 4th, you would also go to Willowa. So that would be the assignment. About 100 children would go to Ptarmigan, and about 100 children would go to Willowa. We have about 82 children that are on zone exemptions in this building, and we would work to keep as many of them as a member of the family as possible, but we need to see how the 2 buildings shake out first and how many people elect to stay with their neighborhood and go to the school that we're suggesting, and then we would process the zone exemptions on an ad hoc basis. So that is what we're proposing for the reassignment of these neighborhoods. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and initiate the public hearing. I think Dr. Stock would like to make a comment before we do that.
Yeah, just before we begin, I just wanted to acknowledge some folks. Dr. Bryan, our superintendent, is in the back. He is here. Board member Kelly Lessons, I see Kelly here. Our board president, Margot Bellamy, I saw her somewhere. Okay, over here, okay. Carl Jacobs, I see Carl in the back, vice president. And Dave Donnelly is sitting right here. And Pat Higgins, I think I saw Pat here. Okay. Did I miss Andy? And there's Andy Holloman. Thank you. Did I miss any? We got one more. Didn't see her yet. Okay. Thank you, Shannon.
Great, thank you, Mark. So I'll go ahead and start calling upon people. Again, the microphone is right up here. We have a variety of people. We think we have everyone in this room. If you have a complicated question, please feel free to ask it. We have Jim Anderson who could answer financial questions, Dr. Mark Stock that can answer academic questions regarding programs. We have Rob Holland who can answer transportation questions, operational questions. If you have any questions about the age and condition of the buildings that we are talking about. And then we have Eric Visti, who is our senior director for education programs, who can answer all sorts of questions about that. I think Tarlisha Wayne is still in the audience who can answer questions about special education programs. So we think we have a room full of folks who can answer questions. So with that, I'd like to call on Lika McCauley, followed by William P. on deck, please.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Lika McCauley, and I'm the principal at Willowa Elementary School. I'm a 20-year employee of the district, and I have seen budget crises before. I've been displaced myself twice personally, and it's always a really difficult situation for all parties involved. And so it's very unfortunate, our state of public education funding at this time. And really my main comment tonight is that we would work together and try to address the root cause of this concern, which is state funding for education in Alaska. I've never seen a budget crisis this severe, and with this, so many of our students are impacted, and I'm just encouraging everybody to work with the public officials and do what you can to promote change. I do want to say specifically, Willowa has had a long tradition of welcoming any family that comes through our doors, and that Willowa will continue to welcome any family that comes through our doors, and that we get the honor of being able to work with. This is definitely a time that's filled with a lot of heartache, and so I know that the school board specifically has some really difficult decisions to make, and we're wishing you all well during this difficult time too. So I don't have any questions, just comments, and just saying that it's obvious by the showing in this room that the children of this community are our hearts, and that's why I say let's not stop here. We can say anything we want to tonight and use this public process, but we can also engage with our legislators in Juneau and continue to ask for fair and predictable funding for our students. They're worth it.
Thank you, Lika. William P., followed by Sarah Benifer.
Good evening. So there's about 281 students in this school. You guys say that there's maybe approximately about $4,000 allocated to each student per year. Minimum $1,000, because the feds give you guys money, state gives you guys money, and the muni gives you guys money. Just at a minimum of $4,000, that's $1.1 million for this school alone, for the students. School doesn't look like it's seen $1 million every year for the students. Every kid should have a laptop or an iPad or something in their classroom. You guys are driving $80,000 cars, right? Where's that $1 million at? If you guys put it at, but according to the educational data of the Institute, it says you get $19,000 per student. That would put it at $5 million for this school. Where's that money going? I mean, it's per the students, not for payroll for the teachers, for this school. Where's that money at? I'm just curious. And the financial officer guy, you knew you were coming into a budget before you took this job. You should have had a plan. And if you had a plan, did you implement it? And is your plan working? Because the problem should have been solved within 2 years if you had a strategic plan to go ahead and address this situation, correct? And because if you have a business and you hire somebody to come take care of that problem for 2 years and they still haven't took care of that problem 2 years, are you going to continue paying them? Absolutely not. And another quick thing, we should be able to see the chief financial officer's taxes. We should be able to see his income, because if he's supposed to handle our school's payroll and our financial, we should see how he handles his. That's only fair to the public, because it's a school district. Everybody pays into this. You guys want to close the school. If you can't get the kids to school now with the bus situation, how are you going to get 1,800 more kids to school? Makes no sense. You guys are using Greyhound buses to transport kids to sporting events. That's a waste of money. This guy right here, he sat here and talked about statistics in other states. That had nothing to do with Anchorage, Alaska, or Wonder Park Elementary. That was an absolute waste of time, wasting all of our time. You see what I mean? That paid him an hour's worth of commission. $50,000 a year for kids to have an app on their phone to tell, all they got to do is go to their neighbor, hey, man, teacher, this kid's bothering me. And you're going to pay $50,000 a year for that? Really? You guys keep smiling, man. You guys have a great day. I'm done.
Thank you, William. I'd like to call on Sarah Benifer, followed by Ariel Solis.
Good evening. I would like to start off by saying that Willowa is a place that warmly welcomes everyone and is so excited to welcome friends from Wonder Park. What I would like to address is the possible movement of special programs that have and continue to greatly benefit from being at Willowa. I am the elementary listening and spoken language teacher in the only regional listening and spoken language program in the district that is housed at Willowa, along with the preschool listening and spoken language program. I am always available for my students in this unique and necessary program, and one of the core values is to teach and use self-advocacy skills, and I am here today advocating for my students. Our purpose is to help students who experience hearing loss learn about language. Willowa also has a very strong English language learner population. It is one of the highest percentages of elementary English language learner percentage of elementary ELL population identified at 50% and is a natural fit to support the needs of our students with hearing loss. Both programs greatly benefit from one another and have similar goals. Additionally, our purpose with our students with hearing loss is to create an understanding of their equipment and how to advocate for themselves. I have seen firsthand the amazing progress students can make through having consistent professionals and expectations in their lives around the school that help make this happen. Our students have a sense of confidence and ownership because of the consistency they experience at Willowa. I am so proud of my students and the growth they have made and continue to use these skills across the whole school. Additionally, having the listening and spoken language preschool and the LSL elementary programs housed in the same building is beneficial in keeping continuity for students who attend the elementary program. Willowa is a natural fit for the LSL programs, and if they were to move to different locations, it would be a detriment to the students who are served in them. Willowa has been and continues to be a safe place for our students with hearing loss to feel accepted and to advocate for themselves, and where teachers and staff already have an understanding of their hearing loss and how to foster these skills in our students. Our students need consistency and exposure to consistent language, which Willowa provides. Their culture is accepted, included, and celebrated by staff and students. It would be a serious detriment to everything they have worked toward if their program is moved. Thank you for your consideration, and as always, we say at Willowa, we are safe, we are calm, and we can handle this.
Thank you, Sarah. Ariel Solis, followed by Jenny Flor Simoon.
Good evening. I'm speaking on the behalf of Addie Esco, our counselor. My initial reaction when I looked at the list of schools considered for closure was heartbreak, because 5 of the 6 schools on the list are Title I schools, mine included. As a counselor, my mind starts to race as I think of the unique challenges faced by the students and families in these school communities. They are some of our most vulnerable. This is not an equitable choice. Title I students need stability, familiarity, and accessible resources. In my 10 years in clinical medical health and school counseling, I have told educators and parents that the single best thing you can do for a child is provide a safe, consistent, and predictable environment. Those protective factors pay high dividends. Moving a highly vulnerable group of students into a new environment increases vulnerability. Our district has an entire department, Children in Transition, whose goal is to minimize the changes in school setting when there are disruptions in other areas of the student's life. This department exists because we see the value that consistency in a school environment provides. We cannot change what occurs in our students' lives at home, but we do have the ability to offer stability in the school environment and decrease loss of learning. This is one factor we can impact. We offer stability. We offer stability by making a different choice. Many students are part of families where students play the role of caretakers for their younger siblings. They are responsible for getting themselves up in the morning, helping their siblings get ready, and hopefully getting to school. How can we expect students' attendance to improve with busing and further distances to walk? If a student misses their bus, then they miss school completely, and the option of walking is no longer available or theirs to make. These students are far more likely to be chronically missing school if their neighborhood school is no longer nearby. I have heard the statement that there will be staff members that transition with students, so that will help. We don't know how many staff members will transition with our kids, not considering what the familiarity with a specific place provides students. In a familiar place, students know where to go, where to access help, and find comfort in familiar sights, sounds, and even smells. With trauma and adverse experiences in student lives, we cannot discount the power that familiarity provides. Additionally, Without close neighborhood schools, we lose the benefit of historical knowledge these places hold. Many families have attended here for generations, and staff, even with transitions of staff, have historical knowledge of the families, their needs, and experiences. This knowledge helps minimize the likelihood of students falling through the cracks. Relationships are an integral part of how and if resources are utilized. I've heard the statement that students will have access to more recesses they need. This discounts ease and accessibility. If people are not connected and comfortable with the system, they are less likely to reach out and ask for help. How will this help them get those resources? I plead with the school board to face these factors, and the significant needs represented in these neighborhoods' communities are not overlooked or taken lightly. This is not a simple solution. Thank you for your time, and I hope you consider this statement.
Thank you, Ariel. Jenny Flor Simoon or Lemoon. I'm sorry, I'm not reading very. There you are. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jenny Flor, and it's my kids go to school here in Wonder Park. I have 3 kids, and there's 2 of them who go to school here. And my husband and I talk about, like, they're saying that the school they're gonna close, so we're really felt bad. And I just sharing my experience, because this school is always feel at home, and I always I'm always like confident to send my kids to school every day, because I feel they're safe. And I know we're having a hard time about budget, our school, but maybe we can find something, I don't know about, it's not my job to find a fund, but maybe we can donate or ask for a different, like a lot of businessmen people that we can ask for a donation. I used to work in gas station and Chevron, like the Chevron, like they're saying they donate for school, and I'm so proud because my kids go to school, and I feel like, oh, okay, even though I have a low pay, but I feel good because my kids have those donations, like everything. I don't know what kind of donation the Chevron give it to the school district, but I feel sad that his school is gonna close. But and me and my husband having a hard time to drop off our kids, if either like we're sending to the other school, because me and my husband both working. So sometimes I have to call in. I'm not gonna go to work to send my kids. So hopefully we can figure it out this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny Flor. L. Booth or Lore Booth. Sorry, I'm not doing well reading everything.
Hi, my name is Lola Booth, and I'm here to represent Destiny and Jason Lee Snowen. They go to school here. This is their home. They've been going to school here since they was kindergarten, My biggest factor is if you close this school, how is the kids in this community going to get to school that walk to school? You're already having trouble getting them to school now as it is, And then my nephew, he's a little slow, how is he going to get the extra help that he needs that the teachers take out time today to help him if you go to put him in a bigger classroom with more students? I don't understand it. You all, this is your job. Look around, and all these kids, this is our future. This is our future. If we take them out of a smaller school where they get the help they need and put them into a bigger school, they're not going to get it. They're going to get left behind. But they're already behind so much because of COVID, and then you're all going to go do this. It's going to make them even farther behind, the ones that's already behind. That's just all I have to say. Thank you. I'm just here to support our school. This is their home.
Thank you so much. Elisa Suarez, followed by Lisa Nath, please. Alicia?
Good evening, everyone. I really appreciate you guys, like, with all this information. From the looks of it, it's really good. It really looks good, like, the way you guys are presenting it to us. But I want you to consider the distraction of this organization. This would cost the families, Title I families. These are the kids that's gonna be going to another school with what we're already dealing with, kids with, behaviors because of what's going on at home. And that's an added burden to, to them. Also, I have a question. I've been working with the district for quite a while now. What I see consistently is the changes in academic curriculum. Why do we have to need to change the academic curriculums, like math, reading? Why do we have to change that? It doesn't translate to academic performance, improvement. Are we changing the academic curriculum because of the testing standards? How much money is involved in these things? There's a lot of wastage in those. I know that for sure. I've been working with teachers, and I know how much effort they put in mastering this new curriculum only to change after a few years. Consistency. What happens to our kids when we're not consistent with what we're teaching? We keep changing. Do you really think we're gonna have a good academic improvement? That's my question to you guys.
Thank you, Alicia. Either Dr. Stock or Eric, could you answer our curriculum question? Could one of you answer Alicia's question?
The district does have a rotating schedule over a 10-year period of trying to upgrade curriculums as they change as the years go by. So it does have a cycle of curriculum, and we do budget certain pieces of money to be able to do that when they come around. And so I understand the questions about consistency. Prior to the recent reading program, teachers pretty much had to design and do their own things. And so what we've done is tried to provide more consistency by purchasing curriculums for all the teachers to use, so they didn't have to go and design their own. But there is a cost to that. It's not a very significant cost in the overall district's budget, but it is a cost, and we do try to upgrade those as we go. And so there's a 10-year cycle, and we go through and we look at those as they come along. So as far as other questions about help, there was a question raised about whether students would get support and help and tutoring and things that they may be getting at Wonder Park when they go to the new schools. Just want to make a point in case anyone wants to. They've been asking us questions about the flow of what we call Title I dollars. So the federal government provides Title I dollars that goes to Alaska. Alaska then divides those up to all the districts in Alaska. And then Anchorage gets that pot of money, and then there are rules from the feds about how we distribute that. We do have some variability in how we do that. So once we know what schools may or may not be closed, and once we know which students are going to which schools, we are going to do everything we can to work with those thresholds, because the dollars do not follow children. Special ed dollars follow children. When a special needs student has an IEP and special needs, the dollars that needs to fund that go with the child wherever that child's program is or wherever they are. Title I's different. The monies go to the school, not to children. Then the monies are distributed from the school to serve the children in that school. So we'll do everything we can to make sure any support being given to Wonder Park students will follow, and we'll do that for all the schools that are being looked at. We can lower the thresholds to be able to make sure more schools get that money. We can adjust the dollar amounts that go to secondary to elementary. So I just wanted to let you know that as far as support for students who are economically disadvantaged, which is what Title I dollars go to, we will make sure that those students get service.
Thank you, Dr. Stock. Lisa Naff, followed by LaDonna Reese.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Naff, and I'm a special education teacher at Willowball Elementary School. I want to start by saying that if the board does decide to merge Wonder Park with Willowa, I know that our staff will welcome both Wonder Park colleagues and students because this is the heart of Willowa. And nobody knows that better than the special ed staff. Willowa classrooms welcome all students, regardless of race, religion, gender, socioeconomic background, or disability. Willowa has 4 structured learning classrooms with a total of 4 teachers, 12 paraprofessionals, and 40 students. We have a wonderful new occupational therapy room to support our students' sensory needs and a magnificent team across school settings that have worked diligently and devotedly to learn how to best meet the needs of our students' educational and emotional needs. In my case, my paraprofessional team and I support the inclusion of our special education population into general education settings alongside their typically developing peers. I oversee 15 kindergarten through 5th grade students with full-time IEPs. Some of my students are verbal, and some of them use assistive technology. Our special education students not only just access recess, lunch, and specials alongside their typically developing peers, but they are also accessing academic curriculum. This is the heart of Willowa, constantly wanting to do better to meet the needs of all students. Watching our students be successful in a general education setting is amazing, and I can't imagine sending them back into a structured learning classroom when they have made such great gains and growth. It would be taking 10 steps backwards and a huge disservice to each child and their family, so I am here advocating for them. I am also here advocating for the special education students that aren't ready to include yet. But the model that Willowa has so beautifully crafted allows each student with a disability to have access to a supportive general education setting when they are ready. The Willowa school culture is one where abilities are highlighted and not their disability. This culture has been shaped over many years and requires ongoing staff and student support. My special education students are a part of their general education classroom just as much as the next student. And the structured learning program is just as much as that part of our school family as is kindergarten or the 4th grade students. What the board is proposing in their budget cuts is to take away the SLC program and relocate it. This seems unfair and almost bordering on illegal. Would you relocate kindergarten or 3rd grade? What the board is proposing suggests that our special education students don't deserve their school. Our most vulnerable population within a Title I school is targeted to be pulled from their school. General education peers and a staff that is understanding and experienced in meeting the needs of this special population. Students with autism struggle with change and building friendships. What this board is proposing entails new bus routes, new building layouts to navigate, new educational team, new therapists, new peers, and a new school culture that I can only hope will welcome them as warmly as Willowa does. Willowa culture of inclusion didn't happen overnight. Teaching special education is hard. You just have to look at the number of job openings to know that these teaching positions are a challenge to fill. What makes working at Willowa work for us as an educational team is that we as special education teachers and paraprofessionals are part of that fabric. Just like any supportive family, we can reach out to our amazing administration and our colleagues. What the board is proposing also will take away my support network that I have built and we need to best meet the needs of our jobs. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Lisa. LaDonna Reese, followed by Alice Banks.
Good evening. I have a script, but that was a hard one to follow. So thank you for coming and thank you for listening to our concerns. My name is LaDonna Reese, and I'm a special education teacher expert, formerly a department chair. And I've been in the special ed field for 35 years, and I've supported Willowa for 13 of those years. And I know a lot about the heart and the community of Willowa, and I'm really here to speak for our parents and our staff, which when I walked in, I started to cry because there were so many parents and staff here. I was just kind of overwhelmed by it. But first, let me tell you guys, Wonder Park, if you get assigned to Willowa, you've won the lottery. You will be loved. What she said is true. and you will be accepted, and it's a wonderful community. But Board, I'm speaking on behalf of, like I said, the Willowa students with disabilities. Willowa has 2 regional programs, and you've heard about the Listening Spoken Language program. It's the only one in Anchorage School District, and that is a pre-K through 5 for our kids with hearing loss. It's the only one in Anchorage, and we have 2 special ed teachers and 2 paras. The original, they've all been trained, and the students and staff already understand hearing loss and what our students with hearing loss may need. The other regional program at Willowa is for structured learning. We have the biggest in Anchorage School District with 40-plus kids at this point, 4 teachers and 12 paras. And a lot of those staff are even here right now. And they love our students. That's a total of 6 classrooms. That's my understanding that you're proposing to displace. I understand that the school board not only plans to geographically displace Wonder Park out of necessity, but also plans to displace those 2 pre-existing programs at Willowa and the Title I preschool from their own school. What you suggest would be so hard for our students, family, and staff. This is their school too. I find myself at a loss of words, but I know this is wrong on many, many, many levels. Practically, I could go on and on about how our students need structures, and Wonder Park, your school counselor, did such an amazing job. I kind of wanted to use her script about they're vulnerable and they need us. But at Willowa, you would see our students included in the general education setting with special ed students for academic blocks, not just recess, not just specials. This inclusion has taken us a long time, but this is who Willowa is. You will see nonverbal students sitting with their talkers in a gen ed setting with their gen ed peers. At Willowa, we have about 15 SLC students included in the general ed setting. Inclusion is the real deal at Willowa. As you can imagine, the work of our special educator is challenging, and the turnover rate is high. You have even approved signing bonuses to hire more special ed teachers and paras this year, and you've even given a one-time bonus for those coming. One thing that I know for sure about special education is that a consistent, loving school community makes a difference. And we have that. Wonder Park has that for their students too. If you haven't gathered by now, I plead with you to reconsider moving 62 students with disabilities from a Title I school to bring in 100 new. Thank you.
Thank you, Madonna. Alice Banks, followed by Bert Hodeling.
There is one clarification I'd like to make. I know a number of speakers, more than one, have mentioned the phrase that it's the board's proposal. This is not the board's proposal. The administration is the one that's proposing a series of recommendations. This is just one of many. And the board, of course, has the hard job of trying to sort through all that. But I just want to point out the board isn't proposing these things at this point. They're aware of them. We've been briefing a lot of these things since July, but just to clarify that it's the administration itself, those of us that are hired by them to put these ideas together. We've proposed a package of ideas, and the board will weigh in on that. So those aren't decisional that we've made. These are recommendations. And I just want to point out the board hasn't proposed these things. These are coming from admin.
Thank you. I understand this is hard for everybody involved. I've had over 30 years of children in ASD. I've been working for ASD for 7 years at this school and a couple years before that. My family chose to move to the Wonder Park area. I got displaced initially, and so that was a blessing though, because then I got to come and be a part of this neighborhood. Wonder Park is my home. And yes, it is personal. You mess with my kids, you mess with me. Sorry. But the thing is, there have been so many things that we as a Wonder Park family have worked on and worked on and worked on. I've gotten to know a lot of these kids from when they were first here, and now they've gone on. And I love them. I love them. And you've guys got to understand what is going to happen when those bonds are broken, whether they go to Ptarmigan or Willowa. Thank you, Willowa, for being here and encouraging us. And I'm sure that if that's where God leads us, it will work that way. But my faith is strong that regardless of who's in charge, that the best is going to come. The thing is, we as a as a Wonder Park community have put a lot into our kids. Our kids feel at home here. I feel at home here. This summer, we were, a couple of staff, we were able to start working on a family garden or a summer garden. And the fifth graders, they're fourth graders last year, fifth graders this year. They were so excited about it. They got out there and they dug and they dug and they pulled weeds and they planted potatoes and all kinds of things. And this year they were saying, oh, let's do it next year. I really want to do it next year. So what are we going to say to them? Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Bert Hodeling, followed by Megan Paulson, please.
Hi, my name is Bert Hufftelling, and I drove all the way in from the Mat-Su Valley to be here for your very last town hall meeting. I'm really confused how you here in Anchorage, knowing for nearly a decade that the population has been declining in the student base, that you weren't already pre-planning for this and structuring the school district to address the issue of declining population. Your student base allocation or your base student allocation is what funds the schools to operate. And if you have less students, you get less money. This should have already been pre-planned for long before this day come and this big long 6 string of town hall meetings that you've performed here before all of us. In the Mat-Su Valley, they've done great steps of removing what many in America today are calling the woke indoctrination agenda from the school system. Something that the Anchorage School District has not done. In fact, 2 years ago, when the initiative to take the words critical race theory and put it into the ordinance that was being passed by the school board at that time, just those 3 little words weren't even allowed to be introduced into the language for the diversity, inclusion, and equity that it has now been rebranded as. We're more concerned, it seems, about how much money we stick into our pockets as educators and as administrators and into the school's budget than we are providing a quality education. Alaska is ranked the worst in the nation for providing an education. The own Scholastic scores that came out just about 2 weeks ago for the last testing shows that. We're nearly triple the cost of anywhere else in the nation to operate, yet we still perform the worst. What happened to the inspirational people out there like the movie Stand and Deliver brought to us all, and the teachers that put a performance and an expectation on our students to achieve greatness? I do not see that from our education organization that we have here before us today. I have not seen it in Alaska for a very long time. I am born and raised here. I was in the school district of Anchorage from all the way through elementary through high school. And thankfully, I was able to leave Anchorage and go to the Mat-Su Valley, where at least they care about the parents out there and their viewpoints and the education that their children are getting instead of the woke indoctrination. What, if any, solutions have been brought forward other than closing schools? I'm all for the closures of these schools, all 6 of them. Brought it back into the classroom. Your budgets right now are outrageous, $17,500 on average per student. You have 5,000 less students going to school right now. That's nearly a $100 million drop. There's your $68 million that you're short. You knew this was coming for the last decade. Why didn't you plan ahead? Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. Megan Paulson, followed by John Burnitz, please.
Good evening. My name is Megan Paulson. I'm a preschool teacher at Willowa Elementary. I'm here tonight to advocate for our neighborhood preschool program to stay in its current location. When I first heard that Wonder Park would be closing their students would be joining our Willowa school family, I was ready to welcome them. But I soon realized that we don't have the space to do so. I learned there would be programs that would need to leave to make room for our new students. Our structured learning classrooms, hard of hearing program, and our preschool would need to leave to make this happen. This breaks my heart. I've been a preschool teacher at Willowa Elementary for 13 years. Some of my first students are in high school now, and many of the parents are here in this audience. Thank you for coming. This district's neighborhood preschool program was established 20 years ago at North Star, and Willowa has been in our community for 18 years and has served around 280 families. The district's plan for next year would be to take our program to Nanaka Elementary, where we would remain a Title I preschool, but Willowa Preschool would cease to exist. And the school would become a preschool academy and would serve students ages 3 and 4. My students would not be in a school with their siblings. Their parents would have to drop them off at 2 different locations at 2 different times. Sorry, I'm emotional. These are my families. Many parents are unable to provide transportation. In this case, many students would not attend school. This is a burden for families. Funds would need to be put in place to provide the services for them next year. I fear that this move would be such a burden that families would just keep their children at home. Our preschool program is part of a larger school community. The way our program is designed, we have many opportunities to get to know families, like home visits and family engagement. This makes a lasting impression on families who will be a part of our school family for the next 6 years. The kindergarten classrooms are right across the hallway. We work closely with teachers to prepare our students for transition to kindergarten. Our students are role models in their kindergarten classroom because they've been through our program. Students from other grades come to support in our classroom as a benefit for them as well as my students. In years past, we have had 5th graders come and do activities with them. My students will miss out on all these things being in a standalone building. I hope you will consider keeping Willowa Preschool in its current location. And I know that numbers are dwindling, but Willowa's numbers are not. Our preschool is always full, and we always have a wait list. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. John Burnett's followed by Sharon Meacham, please.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. I was here in front of you last night. I'm going to be trying to be a little bit more articulate tonight. I'm not from here. I'm from the Inlet View community, and I think I'm here to talk to you all, to tell you there's another source of money that could make everything you're dealing with here tonight easier. Inlet View is a school. It's a great school. I love the community. I've been there for 30 years. But they're proposing a new building. The building is going to cost, the school board, and the members are here, they set aside $37 million for a brand new building. Right. So Inlet View is one of the most needy schools in the community for renovation. But I think in our budget times, when we have these constraints, you should not be building a new building. I don't think anyone here thinks that. You could save, I think, upwards of $10 to $20 million remodeling the old school as opposed to building a brand new building. The design for the new building is a 2-story building. It expands it. It's an amazing building, but we simply can't afford it. So what I'm asking people here to do, and thank you for this forum, is to go to the school board meeting on December 5th. All the board members are here. They're hearing me now. Hopefully you'll have their backs. And ask that Inlet View be changed from a new building to a remodel. That way you can use some of that money to do anything you can do here. Maybe keep the school open, maybe keep some of the schools open. And it's a very reasonable request. I think the school board meeting is at the Lusek Library. Is that true? Is that where it is? Okay. He's on the board. You can tell by the big sign that says that. Find out. It's probably not very hard to find out where to go. You can go and show up and just support the renovation as opposed to the new building. I'm one of the few people of the Inlet View community here tonight talking about this, but at the school board meeting, there'll be upwards of like 20 to 30 family members that want a brand new building. I understand that. I would want a brand new building for my students also, but if you look at the whole picture, it's not really fair to the other schools. And I want to end with that. I mean, I've sort of said what I wanted to say, but I want to end with that. It is a real tragedy that you're competing one school against the other. And I think probably everyone here agrees with that, especially probably these people. I think everyone here would want more money. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Finally, again, repeating it, December 5th, school board meeting, support a renovation for Inlet View as opposed to a brand new building. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Sharon Meacham, followed by Maddie Nansen.
Hey, Shannon, can I clarify real quick? Just to clarify for everyone, the board has not decided to rebuild Inlet View with $37 million. It is certainly on the table for their decision on the 5th. So just to clarify.
Well, that's not clarifying it quite accurately. They've set aside, they've received upwards of $100 million in funding. They set aside $37 million from the last meeting to this meeting specifically assigned for Inlet View.
Correct. During the discussion a couple months ago when they decided to set it aside, the discussion was we knew we had a few more students this year, so we were going to get a little bit more revenue. We didn't know how much at that point in time. We knew that we had a lot of vacancies, so, but we didn't know how much we were going to be able to do through cost avoidance, so they intentionally set it aside to give us time and space to figure out our new revenue projection and our expenses through the rest of the year. And we'll be presenting that to them on the 5th prior to the board meeting, so they're more informed before they get to the meeting to make what may be what you described, which is possibly part of it goes towards the general fund to help for fiscal year 24, but they have not made a decision. I did want to make that clear.
No.
It's just there's a lot of things on their plate to talk about. That's one of about 20.
But that's why everyone should go on the 5th, because that money is still available for schools like this one. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Meacham, and I am also a neighbor at Inlet View, and I am a retired elementary school principal here in Anchorage. And I've been through many of these painful budget cuts during my tenure, and none of them are fun, and there's always pain. So with that, I'd like to reiterate what John just said, and that is to encourage you to go over to the board meeting on the 5th and express your concerns about Wonder Park and any other potential cuts. The money that has been set aside to consider all of the incoming possibilities there's a potential that the new building or that their potential is that there could be money going toward a brand new building for Inlet View, which at this moment it doesn't look like we have the money for. So with that, I'm just asking everyone if they have had serious consideration of a remodel at Inlet View, freeing up money, and if not, why not? And I would encourage you to do that, so maybe some of that money would mitigate some of these draconian cuts. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Maddie Nansen, followed by Pasa Maliatufa.
Good evening. My name is Mati Nansen, and I am a proud Willowa parent of not one but two boys, one of whom is this little guy right here. This is Jeremiah. Say hi, Jeremiah. Jeremiah is in the preschool program. He's doing awesome in there. He's thriving. He's ready for kindergarten. He's going to kick butt. I also have another baby. He's 8. His name is Noah. He's in an SLC program at Willowa. Coincidentally, these two programs are some of the programs you plan on removing from Willowa. I don't know how and why that would even be on the table for a chopping block to remove our most youngest and the most vulnerable ones from our school. They belong there. To put them in a whole nother building, that just doesn't make sense. I thought we were all about inclusivity, to include our special needs kiddos and these little guys who are enjoying their first year at their school. They need the kindergartens, first graders, second graders, third graders. They need that role model. Our special need kiddos, they're having a hard time as it is. They're dealing with diagnoses that they didn't even ask for in the first place. And here you are, making it hard for them to move forward. They're trying to break barriers as it is. Please don't be like COVID and interrupt what we got going on over there right now. I feel for the families of Wonder Park. You talk about solutions. There is no solution in this. You talk about repurposing these schools that you're proposing to close. what's wrong with the purpose that they're serving now? They still, Mr. Shannon, you talk about declining birth rate, declining enrollment. What about the kids that are still showing up every day? The parents that are still bringing their kids to school every day? The teachers who we all know don't make as much as you guys, they're still showing up every day. They still matter. Not everyone wants to make kids. I mean, look at the problem we're having. Who wants to make kids right now? What about the kids that we have today? Please reconsider what you're proposing. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadi. Pasa Maliatufa, followed by James Rosa Smallwool.
Good evening, gentlemen, ladies and gents. My name is Pasa Maliatufa. I've been a Wonder Park parent, grandparent for over 10 years. Wonder Park was the first school my children have attended. Now, the two older ones have gone on to high school in the Anchorage district. Now, I am a grandparent. I have 4 lovely grandchildren. They all attend Wonder Park, home of the All-Stars. When I heard that Wonder Park was on the list as one of the schools to be closing, it broke my heart. The staff, the students, we are all a family. Being here for more than 10 years, you are a family. I live in the community. I left the islands to bring my children out here to have a great education. I am a parent that I don't play with education. The staff here knows that. Even middle school, Clark, Bartlett High School, they know I'm a parent there. My children, they know better. Why? Because that is the front line. I tell them, education, don't play with it, especially with a parent, that education is your life. I was searching on the internet. I got on there and I got the Alaska Public School report card. I looked over at Wonder Park, I looked at Williwaw. Williwaw is right behind me. I am not against it. We are all families. But what I'm against is that combining school. My greatest concern is that classroom sizes, students within the class. And we just saw the slide. We are very thin, and teachers were short of staff. Combining 2 schools, Williwaw.
30 seconds.
I'm sorry for them. But the thing is that I'm not with it. I want my child to grow up and have the teachers there with them to teach them. And I hear that building structures, what is it that we have, the building structure, brand new, $1 million structures, maintenance, that is your biggest fault, maintenance. Why not just revive the old schools?
Time, please.
The buildings. And there, I'm gonna leave you with this. What are we to gain saving all this money trying to get to that $68 million budget, and we do not have the staff to equip our children for their future? Thank you.
Thank you, Pasa. James and Rosa Smallwool, I think.
Hi, my name is Rosa Smallwood, and I am a first grade teacher over at Fairview Elementary. I just have to say one thing. I do have to disagree with one of the gentlemen that just came up from Mat-Su Valley. But even being a first grade teacher, I just had my 3rd observation, and I hold very, very high expectations for all of my, I have to do this stuff on my tippy toes. Can you hear me? I have very high expectations for all of my students. In fact, that was one of the things that my principal said, is that yes, I have high expectations, but they're reachable for my students. She sees very few misbehaviors in my classroom, and that's because I teach them the expectations from the beginning, like from the first day of school. So there are teachers out there like me still here in the Anchorage School District. So as far as you closing the schools, of course, I was really distraught to hear that, but at the same time, working at Fairview Elementary, we have kindergarten teachers burdened with 27, almost 30 kindergartners, and we don't have enough teachers to help them to minimize those classroom sizes. But what I have, and this is to my knowledge, it is to my knowledge that kindergarten is not a mandatory thing in the state of Alaska. And so being a first grade teacher over the last 2 years, I have seen children come to me for first grade for the first time. They didn't go to preschool, they didn't go to kindergarten, they arrive in first grade with no social, emotional awareness, they have no experience at all. And to top that off, things that would have been caught in their preschool or maybe even in kindergarten, such as speech delays or special abilities that they need, those things are not diagnosed and they are not even recommended until first grade, which is absolutely ridiculous. If you guys would make preschool a priority here in the state of Alaska, and I do have to say this, I was also a preschool teacher, and I had an in-home preschool for over 10 years. So I've worked with these children, and I understand that if you teach them from a very young age, put them in those social environments, they are going to be successful. And if you make kindergarten a priority, these parents will have to bring their kids to school. You guys would raise your enrollment by making kindergarten a priority, and you would also make it a less stressful environment for those coming into the first grade. So you just have to start when they're young. You guys need to make preschool a priority, kindergarten a priority, and we need some truancy officers. I have plenty of students that just don't come to school for whatever reason, 30 days in a quarter, which is absolutely ridiculous. We have no truancy officers. We have nothing like that to make sure that these kids are going to school.
Shannon.
James, go ahead. I don't know if you signed up together or. Okay.
Thank you. I was just going to address a couple of comments about, we've had two speakers mention class sizes, and I just wanted to point out that school closures are not an impact specifically on class sizes. It's the same number of students, same number of staff in different rooms, okay, or different facilities. But if class sizes do rise, it will be because as a community, as a board, as an administration, we haven't been able to reduce expenditures or find enough one-stop areas of revenue to actually deal with the pupil-teacher ratio in the district. And the district has had to, over time, raise pupil-teacher ratios, which is a formula we use to give teachers to each school site. And if class sizes do rise, they aren't going to be because of closures. It'll be because we haven't been able to get our balanced budget enough through other means, and we've had to go to raising class sizes, but it won't be related to a school closure. And preschool and kindergarten are priorities for us. For pre-K, we do have to go through a lot of hoops to braid funds and use monies from different grants and sources. But pre-K is a priority for us, which feeds into kindergarten.
May I just say one more thing also, is that as far as preschool also, preschool needs to be full-time. There's so many parents that would love to have their children go to a preschool for just a half day, but as a child care provider of 10 years, I can tell you, we don't take part-time children. So if they can't be there full day, we're gonna take a full-day child over a part-day child, which means parents would opt to just keep their kids at home. So if you do like a preschool program thing like you wanted to in the schools, make it a full-time program, because that's what the parents need. They can't afford half-day. They just can't do that.
Thank you, Russell. MJ, can you set to 3 for James, please?
I didn't count for James yet.
Okay, great, thanks.
I'm waiting for James.
James, you're
Hello, James.
Hello, everyone. I do have a question just for clarification. So I believe this school, the 5th grade or 6th graders would they would normally go to Clark, right? Is that the case? They would normally go to Clark. So when you split them up from Willowa and Ptarmigan, will the kids from Ptarmigan be heading towards Baggage, and then the kids from Willowa be heading towards Clark at 6th grade?
So one thing that we're proposing, and the reason we can't answer that yet, one thing we're proposing to the board is to move all 6th grade at elementary to middle schools. And there's a lot of reasons that Mark could talk about as to why we do that.
Through the whole district, right?
So it's going to happen over probably 2 years at least, maybe 3. But when we move all 6th grade to middle school, we're going to reboundary because the current boundaries still don't quite impact Central at all or Mirror Lake. And until we've redrawn the new boundaries, which we will do if the board approves 6th grade to middle school, then we're going to be able to see where the new boundaries are for middle school.
Is that going to be coming up on the next meeting too about the?
After the board votes and then we'll be working the 6th grade to middle school boundaries. In fact, we'll be starting in the next week. We did have to get through these town halls. We've got 3 town halls next week, and then we'll be shifting over to start looking at the 6th grade to middle school. And then after that, in the new year, it'll be school start times.
Okay.
And James, I show everybody going to Clark. So Willowa, Wonder Park, Ptarmigan all go to Clark. And so I don't think anything would change.
Okay, I was just curious if there was that change. And I do have one comment. I know I probably only have 30 seconds left, but I grew up in this neighborhood, and this was actually the school that I was in back in the 80s. And so when I first heard about the budget and that schools were closing, and I was hoping to God that I wasn't going to see Wonder Park on there, but it was on there, and it's very heartbreaking to see that we're at this point. I understand the school board has some major decisions that they're going to have to make concerning what schools need to be closed and who's going to remain open. I know at one point there was the discussion about remodeling the school or even rebuilding the school, and I know that's off the table now. But I do need to point out that the main reason why that this school is closing is because it's all about who you elect. And for those people who are not advocating for education out there in Juneau, don't vote for them. Vote for those who are going to be fighting for our schools. And I don't even see, I know we had some legislators up here that's been fighting for our schools, and I don't see one of the legislators that should be here that's not fighting for our schools. And we got legislators over there that are fighting for our schools. But if they're not going to fight for our schools, don't vote for them. This is the result of us voting in the wrong people into office. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Joel Potter, followed by Laura Carpenter, please.
I'm a guest from New Naka Valley. The main reason for closing Wonder Park and 5 other elementary schools is not because it saves the district money. In fact, the consolidating schools will actually reduce formula funding and eventually cost the district in lost revenue. Instead, the reason is because the district is trying to meet the demands of politicians who are unwilling to adjust the BSA until the district right-sizes their infrastructure by closing schools. Speaking of politicians in Juneau, here's what Mr. Anderson said at a joint work session with the school board and the municipality. Quote, "There have been people every year saying, when are you going to start right-sizing, which can be defined a lot of different ways, but in their minds, you still have a lot of schools under capacity, and they don't feel comfortable giving us more money until they think we've made all the steps we can do to be as efficient as we can. There are a lot of people in Juneau that expect us to try and maximize our efficiency. Consolidating in order to meet political demands is the wrong way to approach school closures. It causes the district to choose political expediency over sustainable cost savings and to pursue unprincipled and non-transparent processes for solving the budget shortfall. If political expediency wasn't the primary objective, Would the closure of 6 elementary schools with temporary cost savings of only $4 million be the only concrete recommendation on the table at this point to fill a $60 to $68 million budget gap? Would the district be planning to move a charter into this building that has 30 fewer students this year than Wonder Park Elementary does? Would the district be moving forward for a vote in less than 2 weeks to allocate over $37 million for the total rebuild of one of the smallest schools in the district, serving one of the most affluent and politically connected neighborhoods in Anchorage? The district has accepted the terms of a particular political vantage point that reductively translate efficiency into increased capacity rates. But is it efficient if far fewer students can walk to school and many more will have to be bused? Is it efficient if it is harder for teachers to connect with parents because they don't come by to drop off their kids at the door? Is it efficient if we see an increase in classroom behavior, discipline problems, and crime
30
in the new 400 to 500 student elementary schools? Is it efficient to require parents to drive or for the district to bus 500 preschoolers to 2 centralized locations instead of providing preschool within walking distance throughout the city? Is it efficient? Does it promote student learning to uproot about 1,200 elementary-age kids, many of whom have suffered the worst of pandemic schooling and who represent a sizable portion of ASD's economically disadvantaged students?
Time, please.
As Mr. Anderson said, right-sized can mean a lot of things to different people. The problem is that right now, people who don't represent this legislative district and don't live in Northeast Anchorage and don't know what its residents care about are dictating the terms of efficiency and quality, and that's wrong.
Thank you, Joel. Joel, if I could have a copy of your letter, it'll make it easier for us to transcribe. At the end, if you could give me a copy of your letter, that would be helpful. Laura Carpenter, followed by Elaine Gray, please.
Hello, thank you for listening and for being here tonight. As I said, I'm Laura Carpenter. I'm a parent, a spouse, and a voter, and I live down the street. And before I address the Wonder Park town closure, I just have to say Mat-Su School District was mentioned. And personally, as a queer person and a genderqueer person, I just want to say that there are a lot of things happening in the Mat-Su district that I find very scary. And so I'm personally very glad that our Anchorage School District is not transphobic and creating very dangerous policies. So my daughter graduated from Wonder Park in May. She attended this school from kindergarten through the 5th grade. She now attends Clark and has classmates that she met in kindergarten. Actually, one of the parents from Nathalie's mom was here earlier speaking. She walked to school and could walk to her friends' houses. We walked back here at night and on the weekends for literacy night and science night and neighborhood cleanup. This school has been an important part of our life and our neighborhood, and I would hate to see it close. I hope this meeting galvanizes us to vote for representatives that stand up for children, fund education, and make financial plans that support our schools in a manner that helps our students have the best chance of success. I feel like our leaders have failed us, and our children are paying the price. I wish you luck in finding the best solutions to support our students and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Elaine Gray, followed by Famafu Kamoto.
I can help you pronounce that last name.
Thank
there.
you.
I'm Elaine Gray, and I'm a mother and a grandmother, and I live just down the street. And I'm here to advocate not just for my 2 grandchildren who attend Wonder Park, but for the almost 300 other students who attend here at Wonder Park, for the staff and teachers who show up every day, and for the rest of the working class families in this neighborhood. And I know who you are, I see you, who have been here for years. I am not convinced. I know that we are at a crisis point, but my question is, how has the situation been allowed to deteriorate to the point where we are right now. Because right now, we are facing an edge of the cliff crisis where we are talking about closing schools where our littles attend. I am not convinced that we do not have enough money. I am not. There are two causes when we do not have enough money to do the things that we need to do. And it very well may be true that we have problems with allocations, but we should also look at how that money is being spent now and how that money has been spent in the last 3 years and 6 years and 9 and 10, and why, if this is not your proposal, why these problems have been allowed to get to this point where we are talking about school closures. So if you are on the side of these parents and this working class community, then I would propose to you that we not just talk about these solutions, because we are not going to be able to solve these problems that have been festering for 3 or more years in 3 minutes or 3 meetings. I would propose that we really get to working. And there are people here who are paid. I'm sitting here, I'm a mom and a grandma, and I hear doctor this and doctor that, and consultant here and there. That would suggest to me that you are paid
30
very
seconds.
well to do the job that we are now providing all this input regarding. But I make no judgments. I just point out a fact. This is what we need to do. We need to stop talking. We really do. We need to stop talking in a general fashion and work in a smaller representative stakeholder group so that we can be represented and be sure
Time,
that our
please.
voices are heard. Did you say done?
I said time, please.
That our voices are heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Could you introduce the next person? I'll try. Fa'amafu Komoto, please. She left? Oh, okay, hopefully not because I mispronounced a name. Deborah Hansen, followed by Tammy Hansen.
Hi there, my name's Deborah Hansen. I'm a 40-year resident of Anchorage, and we made it through the 80s, which oil prices plummeted. My husband coached soccer in the Inlet View field, and we had to sieve the grass, the weeds, so that the kids could even play. I mean, it was bad back then. We can get through this. So I have some questions. I was at your meeting last night, and I guess I didn't ask the questions properly. So one, is there a comprehensive plan to get to the $69 million cut? 2, I listened to the assembly meeting at ASD that the other man mentioned, that joint board meeting, and I came to the same conclusion, that you're proposing cutting these schools to get an increase to the BSA. It seems political to me. That's my impression just from listening to the comments there. My next question is, are you going to ask the community for suggestions? When the city had problems in the 80s, they actually went out and asked the community, what would you cut, what would you do? And are you ever going to publish the numbers with some detail so we can figure out what's going on? I mean, I couldn't even find out how much we're paying our consultant from Western Demographics to do this work. Next question is, ASD board set aside the $37 million, it was brought up earlier, to build a new school for Inlet View. Is that money restricted in any way? Next question, could the money be used to keep the schools open? Next question, I listened to you last night to tell the Abbott Loop parents that you don't know what the impact's going to be when they move their kids to a non-Title I school. Today you say that everything will be fine. Is that really true? My husband works at a Title I school. They do a lot of support for the kids, and the kids would not do as well if they didn't have that support. And our kids are our future. I mean, everybody talks about that, but it really is true. Will you be losing any federal money by closing these Title I schools? What is your dollar goal for the admin reduction? And then I have a suggestion for the Wonder Park parents here. The reason ASD is planning to spend over $37 million to build a new Inlet View school, rather than saving the money and just remodeling it, is because if they did anything different, between 100 and 300 parents from Inlet View would show up here and mob the place along with their kids. Get involved. You know, like the other guy said, vote for the right people. Talk to your assembly person. Your superintendent's back there. All these people work for you. We pay their salaries through our taxes. I mean, we can do something. It's our cities, and our
seconds.
schools. So anyway, that would be my cherry thing. So talk to people. We need to do something about it. It's really our community. I've lived here a long time and fought a bunch of people to make things better. We all can do that. It's important. Thanks.
Thank you, Deborah. Jim,
Okay.
would you like to answer some of those?
Sure. I'm fairly positive I won't remember every question. But let me one, I can answer a couple of them, and I know you have emailed the board multiple times, so feel free to email us again and we can answer the rest. So yes, do we have a pathway? We do have a pathway, and we have talked about it. And at the last board meeting, when we talked to the board, I told them that we had a lot of vacancies this year. We needed to wait for the second payroll run, which was October into the beginning of November, and start looking at the cost savings for, I mean, it sounds bad, right? But we did have a lot of vacancies, so our expenses are a little bit low. So we relooked that. We're relooking a lot of other costs to include when we put hiring freezes, hiring delays. We got the OASIS count from the state, and we're looking at finalizing our projected revenue. And so on December 5th, as I briefed at the last, I'm thinking 2 or 3 meetings to the board, we're going to brief what is called the pro forma. We brief it every year, and it will show our new projected revenue, new projected expenses. Because we have some more students, it's not a huge, large number, but it is more. There is going to be some revenue, so we'll show the adjusted. And then, as I told the board, we'll look at all the things we put on the plate, and then there's 3 things left. One is the $37 million, which is very flexible by design when the legislature passed it. And yes, it could be used for operational shortfalls. The second is fund balance for all those cost savings that we've had this year, whether they were intentional or not, when it came to having over 400 vacancies in September. There's still cost savings. So you have the fund balance for that, which only, again, it's one-time funds, right? It doesn't fix your long-term projected. But then the final thing is pupil-to-teacher ratios. So there's always a path to get to 0, because there always has to be a path, because the state statute demands that we pass a zero-balanced budget. The city's charter demands that we pass it in February. One-time funds, if the legislature does that this year, are very likely to occur later, past February. Generally, it's in May, June timeframe. But I'm sure I answered like 1/10 of your questions. I apologize.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Tammy Hansen, followed by Janelle Hantwin.
Good evening. My name is Tammy Hansen. I am not a public speaker, so I apologize right now in case I start to cry. I started here at Wonder Park in 1973 when my sisters and I started right here when we had a family home built in this neighborhood in the Wonder Park subdivision. While streets were named after judges and attorneys, not many people know that. We didn't just grow up here. We had the builder of our house that lived 1 block away. Kitty corner from my house was the cabinet maker that put in 90% of the cabinets in all of the houses around us. My family and I moved back home to my childhood home to raise my children in the early 90s. Right there is the 3rd generation to work at Wonder Park, and we have a 4th generation who is my grandson who goes and attends 2nd grade here. My mother volunteered here, she worked here, I worked here, I had a daycare here for 10 years. This is my home. I've been here for 22 years as the administrative assistant. I've seen the ebbs and flows of all of the enrollments. Last year in kindergarten, we had 27, 28. That's what our first grade is now. This year, it's a low. It's 14 and 16. But how well does that make it for those 5-year-olds who haven't been in school at all? We are a walking school where families rely and depend on that. Isn't that what community school is all about? Some have no transportation, single parents reside at the shelter in our boundaries or another shelter, or work 2 jobs. If you think that the busing service is going to improve attendance, it probably will for a few, but the ones that miss that bus that are waking themselves up and their siblings, they miss it, they miss it. Chances are they're gonna call and try and get one of us to drive them, because we've done that in pairs as well, is go pick up kids. We also lose the valuable conferencing time that we have with parents since we are a walking school. It's about connections. We have to make connections with our kids and our parents and our families and our staff members. I was astounded at the calculation that used to compute the capacity of schools did not include a place for our resource and special education to teach. These students need the
30
least
seconds.
restrictive environment for them to learn, and yet they weren't even on the capacity. I've rewritten this so many times. I don't know if on the table that possibly one of those charter schools could come and provide, live with us here. We have ample campus, we have a garden center, we have ample space for everybody to come, and anybody. ANCCS, I don't know why that
Time,
was even
please.
going to be put here, because they're building their own on APU campus. I have many more, but I will do the board. If fully funded by the state, will schools be safe? And can we still combine them and have a chance?
Thank you, Tammy. I'd like to call on Janelle Hantwin, followed by Paso Alo.
Hi, I'm Janelle Hartman, and I have spoken before you guys before because my school is also on the list of closures, 5 out of 6 of the schools on the list. And Wonder Park, the reason I'm here today is because I actually went into education because of Wonder Park. This is the very first school I ever volunteered at. I had 12 girls in my 21st century after-school program here at Wonder Park that really inspired me to be a teacher. And now I'm a teacher in ASD. And I'm going to do a teacher thing right now, and I know that this has been a really long night, and I know that there's a lot of distractions and a lot of nerves have been hit in the room, but we are here to speak on behalf of our students and to give the attention to the community and to give the attention to those of us that are up here. It's important, and it's important as teachers when we come into the room, we want our kiddos to be paying attention and learning what we're learning. So I do appreciate your attention and your time this evening with us. My comment is very concise this evening. You all brought up the census data, and there was also information from 2016, which I also think is important. Back in 2016, Wonder Park was the most diverse school in the United States. Mountain View is one of the most diverse neighborhoods in the United States. This school is important. This school has a large community of different and diverse cultures that should be celebrated. So my question that I'm posing, or my comment that I'm posing this evening, and it may or may not have been intentional to have 5 out of 6 schools on this list as title schools. However, this does show a message, and it does send a message to our community as well as our kiddos who go to these title schools that they don't matter as much as other students who are not attending schools on these lists. And they do matter, and these communities matter, and the folks that showed up here this evening mattered. So thank you for your time and attention. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. Paso Alo, followed by Jaden A.B., please. Is Paso here? Okay. Jaden A.B.
also hate public speaking, so bear with me. So I was in an inlet, I'm an alumni graduate of Inlet View Elementary School and was in the 4th-5th split there growing up. And I just want to say splits can work. There may actually be an opportunity for split classes considering there's greater variability in student performance and variability in student needs since the pandemic. I think that there's just a natural opportunity where that could be a benefit. I also want to say thank you for working hard these last years to maintain services without any increase in the base student allocation adjusting for inflation, which is very real. Inflation is real. I also want to say closing 6 schools seems to address less than 10% of this fiscal shortfall. So other than not building a new Inlet View, which seems unconscionable considering all the school closure business and inequitable, I shudder to think what would need to happen to address the remaining deficit. I also hope that those working with the Alaska legislature advocating support for the Anchorage School District encourages that body to consider the economic impact of the brain drain that inconsistent funding and budget cuts to education may have as schools are planned to be shut down, as this one, and specials enrichment at the remaining schools are threatened. That's the 30% you were showing. I recognize that you don't control your funding, and the gal who asked all the questions moments ago definitely asked mine. But if facilities are 15% of your budget and addressing this proposal to shut down 6 schools will address that in some way, I just wonder about what else would happen with to address the remaining 50 million shortfall. Like, how many teachers does that represent versus how many schools does it represent? Like $3 million is closing 6 schools. How many teachers is that?
So I think I can talk that. So there's 3 things after the board has made decisions on everything we've already offered. School closures is one of those. Ignite. If 6th grade goes to middle school, then over the course of a couple years, we'll reduce the cost of 6th grade band and orchestra. The school closures is as much about having undercapacity facilities as it is money, but a couple weeks ago or maybe a month ago, I started talking to the board. When we get into December, we'll look at all the stuff that we've put out. It really is 3 things. One of those is the one-time money from the state that may or may not, as discussed tonight, be used for all or a portion of Inlet View or not. The fund balance, which I talked about a few minutes ago, we're finalizing our updated revenue, our updated expenses. We have saved a lot of money because we had so many vacancies. We weren't happy about the vacancies, but it did save money. And we're also looking at all of our other projected costs. So and then the final thing, after we looked at state one-time, district one-time money, the final thing you look at is pupil-to-teacher ratio. If we were to look at a PTR of 5, and this is hypothetical, this is not a recommendation, this is not in any way leaning toward I would even want to build that chart, but if you were to do a pupil-to-teacher ratio of 5 from kindergarten to 12th grade, it's about $30 million, or about 280 plus teachers. That's the enormity if we didn't use our emergency savings, and if we don't look at the state one-time funding. I mean, I can't imagine that if PTR is used, that it wouldn't be far less than 5. I just don't know what that final answer is going to be. I mean, there's a lot of tough calls, and honestly, for every kid out there, if music is their thing and they're never going to play football or hockey, then music is the one thing that motivates them to come to school and to stay in school and to finish school. If it's hockey or swimming or Ignite or everything else we put on the plate, we're well aware that those things really do mean the world, not just to the staff that gets up. I mean, we've talked to the staff. These really are all important, but they all need to be looked at by the board. They'll all make decisions, and then we go to the final 3. District funds from our savings account, state one-time, and PTR. And those really are the last things we have, because we have to pass a budget in February, and it's extremely unlikely that the legislature could have funding bills in the first 2 or 3 weeks of a session.
Thank you, Jim. Jaden, did you have any concluding remarks, or did?
What would have to happen for, what would have to happen for that to happen? Like, I know 49% of us thought we voted for the right person, but it didn't pass over 50 in this neighborhood. So, like, what would have to happen?
I don't think I can answer that. I've been to Juneau every year for 7 years now. I can tell you one thing, and that's every legislator I've talked to this year, either those who know that they're going to be legislators or those who believe that I have never seen support this strong from a group of legislators that I talked to, that they're going to try to do something this session. I have never seen it this solid, this strong since I've been here.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Jaden. Jaden was our final speaker, so I'd like to thank everybody for your participation. If you spoke from a written statement, it would make it easier for us to transcribe if I could take a picture of it. So if you could bring it up to me, I'd love to make a certain person in Jim's office a little bit happier by having her have something to work from. All of your comments will be forwarded to the board. We will also summarize them so that it will be easy to see major topics. This is the final of our 6-meeting cycle. I'd like to thank the communications staff. I'd like to thank the IT staff, the security staff for all of their work in this process. And thank you for being involved. This decision will be made on December 15th. Is that correct, Jim? 19th. So stay tuned to the district website for further information. Thanks, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.